Hi everyone, my name is Joana Bezerra. I'm a lecturing researcher at the Rhodes University Community Engagement. Today I'd like to talk to you about what is a good research question. So these are the things we're going to cover here. What is not a good research question, and then the steps to follow to improve your research question, and the differences between the disciplines. So before I talk about what I think is a good research question, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is a good research question? So I'd ask you to pause the video here and think about 2 or 3 characteristics of a good research question. So you can think of, for example, articles and book chapters that you've read that had an interesting research question. And if you struggle to start, maybe think of questions that people ask us that we're not really sure what they're trying to find out. So what are those questions like? What are the characteristics of those questions? And then maybe you can get your brain to start thinking about this. So pause the video here and then I'll meet you in the next slide. So now that hopefully you've thought about 2 or 3 characteristics of a good research question, let's just talk about the importance of a good research question in your research project. So your research question is one of the most important aspects of your research. A research question guides and centers your research, so it should be clear and focused. And I know that in some cases we don't choose the research question that we have to work on, right? But even if your supervisor has given you a specific assignment, the research question should ideally be something that you are interested in and care about, because that's just going to make the process a lot easier. And your research question will guide everything that follows. So the methods, the results, the discussion, and how you're going to structure your introduction. So it really is the core of your research project. So let's imagine that this is your research question. Which national parks are best? So if you look at this first question, this doesn't really provide a thesis that you can serve as the basis for a project or even an essay. It only asks for an opinion, right? But if we change it to what features the most popular national parks have in common, that's something else. So now you can use visitor data and lists of park features to answer the best version of this question. So essentially with these 2 questions, you're trying to get at the same issue, but the question just helps you structure the project in an easier way if it's a clear question, right? So let's look at some examples also. So this question, what is the effect on the environment from global warming? This question is too broad. You can write 3, 4, 5 books in this topic and still not cover it enough, right? So another question, what impact did the Haitian earthquake have on the rate of the homelessness? This question is a bit too easy. We know that the Haitian earthquake that happened in 2010 had a huge impact on the rate of homelessness. So it doesn't take us very far. The third question, how do artificial sweeteners affect people? This question again, if we analyze it, so are we talking about specific people? Are we talking about any specific sweetener? Are we interested in any particular effect? So again, it's a bit too vague. The fourth one, are illicit drugs bad for kids? So this question is not really debatable, right? We know that illicit drugs are bad for kids. So here we have these characteristics of these questions that make all of these questions not really helpful to have as your research question for your project. One is too broad, the other one is too easy to answer, the third one is not focused, and the fourth one is not debatable. So moving on into what the steps that you can follow to improve your research. But before you decide what your research question will be, you have to do a very important task, which is basically to read. You need to choose a topic and read as much as you can on it. So choose a topic that you're interested in. As we talked about, if you're passionate about a particular subject, something that it really interests you, it's just going to make the process a lot easier. Do some preliminary research on your general topic. You can also do a few searches on current periodicals and journals on your topic to see what's already been done, because that will help you narrow your focus. And also remember that the more you read, the clearer the boundaries of your research topic and the question will be for you. So as you continued reading, think to yourself, what issues are scholars and researchers discussing when it comes to your topic? What questions occur to you as you read these articles and book chapters? What is your audience? Who is your audience? Who would be interested in this in your research project? This is also very important. After you read a lot on your topic that you've chosen, start asking yourself questions, but open-ended questions. So how, what, and why. And then you can start evaluating possible answers to those questions. One thing to really remember is that choosing a research question is a process. So you're not going to, for example, read an abstract or one article and then come up with a brilliant research question. You really need to read on the topic that you've chosen to try to understand, what is out there, who's the audience, who's interested in this, what has been done, where can I improve what's already out there. So it is really a process of reading and thinking and writing and going back to the reading, just exploring the possibilities. So if you would like something more tangible to help you decide on your question, the PICOT tool is something that's quite well known. The focus of it is for clinical research, but I think some of its components are really helpful to get us thinking about a good research question. So PICOT stands for all the elements that you should look out for when you're thinking about your research question. So the P is for population, so the group that you want to study. Ask yourself, who am I studying? The I is for intervention, so if you're doing an intervention, that can be a medication, or it can also be, for example, a lesson or workshop that you're doing. You need to know what is it you're intervening with. The C is for control. Once you have intervention, what are you comparing it with? O is for outcome. What outcomes are you looking at? So you will probably have something you think is going to happen from your research. You also need a time frame, a well-defined time frame. So it defines the length of your study. Be careful. So if it's too short or too long, you will miss the desired outcome. So, for example, your time frame can be, if you're thinking about medication, it can be a week, it can be a month. If you're thinking about a lesson, are you talking about one lesson? Are you talking about two lessons? Are you talking about a whole term? If you're doing, for example, systematic review, what is the time frame that you're going to be searching on? Is it from 2000 to 2005 or from the 1980s to the 1990s? So that has to be very well set up. And the later addition to the PICOT is the S for setting, so which is when you define the setting of your research will be including. So, for example, urban or rural areas, high income or low income. So, one important thing to mention here is that all of this needs to be decided before you start your research project, right? So, if you're talking about your population, the intervention, the control, the outcome, the time frame, and the setting, all of this has to be decided before you actually start your project. So again, because this will guide everything else that comes in your research project. So now we're moving into the differences between the disciplines. And here we have, if you're in the humanities, this checklist might help you. Is a research question something others care about? Is it arguable? Is the research question is a new one or a new spin on an old idea, or does it solve a problem? Is it too broad or too narrow? Is the research question researchable within the given time frame or location? That's very important. What information is needed for you to answer that question? If you are in the sciences, the social sciences, you need to look out for different elements here. So the questions need to have repeatable data and reliable data in the original research. Does not allow for strong or arguable research question. And you also need to consider what kind of problem you want to address. So is your research trying to accomplish one of these 4 goals? So are you trying to define or measure a specific fact or gather facts about a specific phenomenon? Do you want to match facts in theory? Or perhaps you want to evaluate and compare 2 theories, models, or hypotheses? Or you want to prove that a certain method is more effective than other methods? And in ways that you can improve a question, I've talked about how getting a research question is a process. So you will start making your notes and writing down possible questions and evaluating the possible answers, and that will progress as you read on to your final improved version of your research question. So the first questions that we looked at in the beginning of this talk: what is the effect on the environment from global warming? So this question we agreed it was too broad, but then you can improve it to what is the most significant effect of glacial melting on the lives of penguins in Antarctica? The second question: what impact did the Haitian earthquake have on the rate of the homelessness? So we agreed this is too easy to answer. Then you can improve it by the Haitian earthquake of 2010 caused widespread homelessness. That's a fact. Why, despite relief efforts, were levels of homelessness still high between 2014 and 2016? So then here we have a researchable question, right? And it's something that's not easy to answer, and it's a lot more interesting question. So the third question: how do artificial sweeteners affect people? This question was too vague. We didn't know what artificial sweetener, what people exactly, and any particular effect that we were interested in, and you can improve it to how does aspartame affect postmenopausal women who suffer from migraine. So it's a lot more specific question. And the fourth one, which was originally not debatable, are illicit drugs bad for kids, right? You can improve it to which effective education strategies prevent drug abuse in teens. So it just shows you that you can work on questions and improve them, make them more specific and researchable and arguable, and something you can work on for a research project. So a research question should be clear, so the audience does not require additional information to understand the purpose of a research question. It also should be focused, so it's narrow enough that can be answered through the space the writing tasks allow. So, your research question will depend on, are you doing an essay or are you doing a PhD? These are 2 different time frames that you can work on, right? Your questions should also be concise, not too long-worded, because that's just going to create confusion. It should also be complex, so it's not a yes or no question, and a question that demands synthesis and analysis of ideas. And it also should be arguable, so the potential answers to the question are open to debate rather than being accepted facts. And here we have a process that we talked about that you can follow. So finding your topic, so read about your topic, something that you're interested in, something that you're passionate about. So, are you interested in a topic? It's very important that you are. It's just going to make everything a lot easier. And then you can start narrowing down, thinking, who is your audience, who is interested in this? Start asking yourself questions and think about possible answers. And, obviously continued reading. Then, getting there, start thinking of possible answers to these questions and check if your question meets the criteria for a good question that we just talked about. And then your final research question, so after consulting your supervisor or your peers, you will have your final research question. Here are the links with the bibliography that I've used. I hope this was useful to you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Bye.